Calamity Jane is a legend. She's one of those people in history that we think we know a lot about her, but when we're asked about her, we really find out that we know little about her. So today I'm recording this on her birthday, May 1st, and I'm going to record it as a primer so we can get to know a bit more about her. When I think of Calamity Jane, I think of that 1950s movie with Doris Day. I like Doris Day. I know a lot of people have seen Deadwood, and they probably think of Robin Weigert. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name. I'm sure she's a great actress. I really don't know her. I've never seen the TV show, so I think of Doris Day. Calamity stands out as the female in the West. If you know of two females from the Western time period of the 1800s in the US, you probably know of Annie Oakley and Calamity Jane, and my guess is you probably know about as much about one or the other. In 1880, Calamity Jane was the most famous woman in America. She was the heroine of a play in Philadelphia called Queen of the Plains. She was the legend of a woman of the plains who protected the weak and defied the strong. And I'm going to apologize to you right now. I'm going to show pictures of Doris Day throughout because that's where my mind always goes, even though it's not accurate. However, when she was in the East, she was extremely popular. People were absolutely fascinated with her. People wanted to either drink with her, and journalists wanted to follow her around. Maybe surprisingly, she really longed to be married and settle down. She had a boy who died in infancy, unfortunately, and a daughter, which we know a bit about. And there is some discrepancy. She may have had two other kids. We're not really too sure about that. She did have a problem, though. She couldn't maintain a relationship because of her lifestyle and her drinking. Unfortunately, whiskey got in the way of a lot with her. She was an alcoholic, and she just couldn't last without drinking. She repeated her own childhood experience with her daughter, unfortunately. So let's take a step back. Frontier woman and sharpshooter Martha Jane Canary, who would later become known as Calamity Jane, was born in Princeton, Missouri on this day, May 1st, in 1852. Some people say it was 1856. She was born on a farm, the oldest of several siblings. Her parents didn't do too well with that farm, unfortunately. Her dad was a gambler, and her mom an alcoholic. When she was 12, or 8, some say, they had to leave Missouri to escape prosecution for their debts. So they chased gold in the West by hitting the Oregon Trail. So they hit the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail was certainly a difficult trip. It was during this time on the Oregon Trail, Calamity started to learn to ride horses and start to shoot. Sorry, another Doris Day picture here. Then, unfortunately, her mother got sick in the trail and died. Just reminds me of that video game. It was probably a lot worse than that for sure. However, there are conflicting stories if at that time the father ran off or if he started to farm in Utah with the kids and then died. Either way, at the age of about 14, Calamity Jane was an orphan and she had to care for her siblings. Not really being into farming, she took a job as a cook. She took a job as a waitress, a dance hall girl, a nurse, and as far as we know, an ox team driver. We do know she also took a job as a prostitute for a bit at the Fort Laramie 3-Mile Hog Ranch. This is a picture of it. Sounds really classy. This is most likely where she started to learn to drink hard liquor. As she got older, she moved on and became involved in military actions. Starting in 1872, she sneaked along with the military expedition. There were journalists along with this expedition, and they took a picture of her relaxing on a rock. That picture was published and that really started her fame. She then rode along as a scout and escaped skirmishes with Indians. She escaped where many of the soldiers did not escape. And when she came back alive and well, this is when the soldiers began to call her Calamity Jane. How much she did with scouting is a bit up for debate, like most of what you hear about Calamity Jane. However, it's a fact that the soldiers all claim to know her and have a connection with her, so the legend really began to grow at this point. Now, keep in mind, all of this comes from an autobiographical account that was published in 1896. This book was really written for publicity purposes, so while we rely on this, we have to take it with a grain of salt. So after that military expedition, she joined Wild Bill Hickok's team as they moved from Fort Laramie to Deadwood. And I'm assuming this is part of the TV series that I never saw. However, she gained a reputation during that trip as a storyteller. They'd sit around the campfire, she'd tell stories. Old Hickok didn't really care for that, or her. She often stole Hickok's liquor. He didn't care for that either. In spite of all this, there is some evidence that Calamity Jane and Wild Bill Hickok had a daughter. Her name is Jane Hickok Burkhart McCormick. This evidence is disputed, but let me refer you back to all the booze that was being drank. Anyway, after Wild Bill died, which is a legendary story in and of itself, she attacked Jack McCall, Wild Bill's killer, with a meat cleaver. After that, she did stick around Deadwood for a while. There's one account where she saved passengers on a stagecoach by diverting the Indians that were attacking the coach. After the attack, she rode up to the stagecoach and took the reins to stop it since the driver was killed during the Indian attack. That is something right out of a great Western, something like Silverado. It's true too, there were witnesses. She then wandered around the West. She notched up stories of adventures and dalliances with cowboys. She had at least one son during this period. Unfortunately, he died young. In search of that family life, she got married. She first married a man named Robert Dorset. He beat her. And as you could imagine with Calamity Jane, that just isn't going to last. So she did find a second husband. His name was Clinton Burke. He was a Texan. They tried to make a go of it, and she tried to be an innkeeper, but that really didn't take. There are also claims and some evidence that she married Wild Bill, but that's heavily disputed, as I keep saying. So by 1893, she was appearing in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, telling stories and performing tricks. She was incredibly popular, but ultimately, she was not happy with the lack of fortune and the lifestyle. There is a story where the show was performing for an expo, and they were concerned about Calamity Jane's drinking, so they gave her a chaperone. And the deal with the chaperone was, I'm not going to give you anything to drink unless if you ask for it. So you're going to have to ask me for the booze if you want it. So what happened was Calamity was asking for the booze all the time, so it really didn't slow her down. Drinking got the best of her, ultimately. She went back to the Black Hills with a train ticket that Buffalo Bill paid for, and she ended up working for her old madam, Dora DeFron, and earned her way with cooking, cleaning, and waitressing, not prostitution at this point. The drinking and hard living, though, really caught up to her. And on August 1st, 1903, she died of what was probably a pretty nasty illness. It was pneumonia and an inflammation of the bowels. And here she is in this photo. Her grave is right next to Wild Bill's. In her own words, Calamity Jane was a tough woman who lived a bad life. I'll keep the image of the spunky Doris Day in my head.